Barbara Mayo, 1970, Derbyshire. Why did one motorway journey end in murder? Every town has a dark side, but not every dark story begins in a place that looks dangerous. Sometimes it begins with a normal errand, a familiar route, and the kind of decision thousands of young people made without fear in the early 1970s. On the morning of October 12, 1970, Barbara Mayo left her home in West London to collect a car. By the end of that day, she had vanished somewhere along Britain's motorway system. 6 days later, what began as a missing person search would become one of the most haunting unsolved murder investigations in modern British history. Barbara Janet Mayo was 24 years old. She lived at 40 Rockley Road in Shepherd's Bush, London, with her boyfriend, Dave Pollard. To those who knew her, she was educated, independent, and capable. She was an English graduate, a trainee teacher, and someone who had already traveled widely, including hitchhiking across parts of Europe after her studies. That detail matters because Barbara was not stepping into a world she did not understand. Hitchhiking in Britain at the time was common, especially among students and young travelers. The motorway was not seen only as a place of risk. For many, it was a route towards freedom, movement, and possibility. Barbara also had a practical connection to cars. Reports said she earned extra money dealing in vehicles, and in October of 1970, a broken-down car became the reason for her final journey. The day before she disappeared, Barbara and Dave had been traveling back south after a trip toward County Durham to buy 4 new wheels. Their car broke down near Catterick in North Yorkshire. They left it at a garage to be repaired, then found their way back to London. The plan for the next day seemed simple. Barbara would travel north again, collect the repaired car, and drive it home. At some point on Monday, October 12, 1970, Barbara left her flat in Shepherd's Bush. One source places her departure at about 8 in the morning, while another later report describes it as around 11. What remains clear is that she made her way from West London toward Hendon, a known starting point for hitchhikers trying to travel north. From Hendon, Barbara intended to follow the road network toward Catterick. She was believed to be traveling via the M1 and the A1, and she carried a distinctive yellow bag with a red elephant motif. That bag would later become one of the most recognizable details in the entire case, because when Barbara was found, it was gone. At first, nothing about the journey seemed extraordinary. Barbara had traveled before, and the purpose was ordinary enough, a repaired car waiting at a garage in North Yorkshire. But somewhere after she reached the edge of London, the confirmed trail begins to break apart. There were leader sightings, or possible sightings, but none of them solved the case. Some witnesses believed they had seen Barbara at trowel services. Others described a woman matching her appearance near Kimberley in Nottinghamshire. One account placed a woman getting into a white Morris Traveller, a lead that would pull investigators into a massive and exhausting search. But this is where the case becomes difficult. A sighting can help an investigation, but a mistaken sighting can quietly reshape it. Years later, Dave Pollard would question whether the Kimberley sighting truly matched Barbara's route, her timing, or the reason she had set out that morning. By lunchtime on Tuesday, October 13th, the concern became harder to ignore. The Catterick garage was contacted, and staff confirmed that Barbara had never arrived to collect the car. At that moment, a delay no longer seemed like a reasonable explanation. Barbara had a clear destination and a clear purpose. If she had changed plans, someone might have expected word from her. Instead, there was nothing. Dave Pollard reported her missing, and he later searched the motorway network with the help of a private detective trying to find any trace of where she had gone. Imagine that search unfolding across the road system. Service stations, slip roads, junctions, and laybys all became possible fragments of her final route. Every passing driver became someone who might have seen her. Every hour created more distance between the last ordinary moment and whatever happened next. For 6 days, Barbara was missing. Then, on Sunday, October 18th, a newly married couple were walking with family members near Hodmire Lane, close to Ault Hucknall, near Glapwell in Derbyshire. The area was rural, wooded, and close to Junction 29 of the M1. About 20 yards down a track, they found Barbara's body. She was lying face down, covered in freshly fallen leaves. Reports described her as fully clothed, but with her garments in disarray and her jacket spread over her. The discovery turned the case into a murder investigation. Barbara had been raped, beaten, and strangled. Her distinctive yellow bag with the red elephant motif was missing, and the people who found her also reported seeing a light cream Vauxhall Viva estate car backed into the lane near the scene. That vehicle became one of the many unanswered fragments left behind. Was it connected to the killer, or was it simply nearby at the wrong time? Like so many details in this case, it raised more questions than it answered. The location itself was chilling. Barbara had set out from London to reach Catterick, but her body was found in Derbyshire near the motorway, far from the route's beginning and far from its intended end. The road that was supposed to carry her north had instead become part of a mystery. Police responded with extraordinary force. Scotland Yard became involved, and Chief Superintendent Charlie Palmer was sent to help lead the hunt. The investigation would become one of the largest Britain had seen at that time. Investigators interviewed around 126,000 people. They took about 47,000 statements and checked the records of roughly 28,000 criminals. Officers followed tens of thousands of leads, trying to reconstruct Barbara's final movements through the motorway system. Then came an unprecedented move. Police brought a long stretch of the M1 to a halt, stopping every vehicle at every junction along a route of about 150 miles. For one day, the motorway became a search grid, and every driver became a possible witness. A reconstruction was staged for the public. A woman police officer wore the clothes Barbara had worn when she began her journey and was filmed retracing part of the route from Rockley Road. The aim was to make someone remember her, to turn one overlooked moment into a usable clue. The public response was enormous. Hundreds of sightings were reported, but volume did not mean certainty. The investigation soon focused heavily on the report of a woman thought to be Barbara getting into a white Morris Traveller near Kimberley. At the time, there were around 100,000 Morris Travellers on British roads. Police attempted to trace them, a task that consumed time, manpower, and attention. The lead seemed promising, but it also may have been the wrong road entirely. Years later, Dave Pollard expressed deep doubt about that sighting. His concern was based on timing and common sense. If Barbara had left London in the morning, why would she still be around Kimberley by late afternoon, especially when her goal was to reach Catterick before the garage closed? There was another detail that made the sighting feel uncertain. A woman believed to be Barbara was reportedly seen visiting a butcher's shop in Kimberley, but Pollard later said that Barbara's stomach contents showed only the breakfast she had eaten before leaving home. To him, the Kimberley lead may have directed attention toward the wrong time, the wrong place, the wrong vehicle, and the wrong man. If that is true, then the most heavily publicized clue in the case may have helped the killer by accident. While police chased Morris travelers, the real answer may have been somewhere else, hidden in an earlier lift, an unnoticed car, or a statement that never seemed valuable enough at the time. Barbara's murder also echoed another unsolved case from the same year. 7 months earlier, 18-year-old Jacqueline Ansell Lamb had hitchhiking north from London when she disappeared. Her body was later found in Cheshire, and she too had been assaulted and strangled. The similarities were hard to ignore. Both young women were hitchhiking north from London. Both were found in rural locations near major roads. Both had been strangled. Both cases remained unsolved. The press gave the unknown killer a name, the motorway monster. It was a phrase that captured public fear, but it also carried a dangerous assumption. Were police looking for one predator using Britain's roads, or were two separate killers being joined together by coincidence and panic? Over the decades, several theories emerged. Some investigators and writers considered whether Barbara Mayo and Jacqueline Ansell Lamb had been killed by the same man, but no proven forensic link tied the two cases together. Police acknowledged similarities, but similarities alone could not identify a murderer. Another theory involved Peter Sutcliffe, later known as the Yorkshire Ripper. Some writers and former investigators argued that the geography and nature of the attacks made him worth considering. Derbyshire police, however, later stated that no evidence had been found connecting Sutcliffe to Barbara Mayo's murder. Peter Tobin, another convicted serial killer, was also reviewed in connection with unsolved cases through Operation Anagram. Barbara's case was among those considered in that wider context, but Tobin was never charged with her murder, and no public evidence has proven his involvement. Then, in 1997, the case seemed to shift again. Advances in forensic technology allowed police to obtain a DNA profile from material recovered from one of Barbara's garments. For a moment, it appeared that the long wait might finally be nearing an end. Police compared the profile against the National DNA Database. Around 200,000 profiles were reportedly eliminated. Men connected to the inquiry were considered for testing, and detectives publicly expressed hope that the sample could identify the person responsible. But the breakthrough did not become an answer. No match was found. The DNA profile remained another clue without a name, and the case stayed open. That is what makes Barbara Mayo's story so haunting. This was not a forgotten investigation with a handful of early mistakes and little public attention. It was massive, highly publicized, and repeatedly reviewed. It stopped a motorway. It created national appeals. It generated thousands of statements and decades of theories. Yet the person who killed Barbara Mayo has never been identified. Today, the case remains unsolved. Derbyshire police have said that no suspect has been identified and that new information would still be reviewed. The investigation has been scaled down, but it has not disappeared from public memory. For Barbara's family and for Dave Pollard, the unanswered questions did not end in 1970. Her sister, Marjorie, identified her body after the discovery. Pollard continued to think about the investigation for decades, later writing about the lead he believed may have pulled police away from the truth. Barbara Mayo was not simply a name in an unsolved case file. She was a young woman with plans, education, relationships, and a life in progress. She left home to complete a practical errand, and somewhere between London and North Yorkshire, someone took that future from her. The mystery still rests on a few fragile questions. Who gave Barbara a lift? Was the Cream Vauxhall Vida connected to the crime? Was the Morris Traveller sighting real, or did it lead investigators away from the killer? And was the answer hidden somewhere inside one of the many statements taken during the largest motorway hunt of its time? More than half a century later, The road has changed, the witnesses have aged, and many details have faded. But the route remains part of the story. Shepherd's Bush, Hendon, the M1, Catterick, and a lonely wood near Junction 29. Barbara began that journey carrying a yellow bag with a red elephant motif. She never reached the garage, never returned home, and never received justice. The person who killed her vanished into one of the busiest road networks in Britain, leaving behind a case that still asks the same question it asked in October of 1970. Who murdered Barbara Mayo?